Before we get started, thanks to both B and Jordan for joining us as members at patreon.com/dailydetroit. Your support helps push Metro Detroit's conversation forward, and it is much appreciated. Hello from the Paris of the Midwest. On your Daily Detroit, engineer Randy Walker joins me for a veritable podcasting trifecta. Here are the three things we're talking about today. Sour beers are kind of a niche in the brewing world, and since Randy's such a fan, we're trying some from Ferndale Project and ranking them against each other. Not sponsored, just a chance to try something different. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't, but if you haven't, maybe give the genre a try. Apartment Disco is open on Detroit's east side on the border with the Grosse Pointes. Randy's been in the doors and has what you need to know before you go. And finally, if you're looking to build a bar kit from home to try to craft some cocktails for yourself, we share what you need. I'm Jer Stays. Welcome to your Daily Detroit for Monday, December 19th, 2022, and let's get started. You're normally known by listeners as a cocktail person, but you will drink more than cocktails.
I will drink beer if it's sour beer.
And this is sour beer. In fact, we have three sour beers to try and kind of personally rank here from Ferndale Project. Now, this is not sponsored. This is just something that we came up with a big old handful of sours. And I thought it'd be interesting because I don't see too many places lean into sours as much as Ferndale Project seems to.
Yeah, sours are not common. You can find them occasionally. Brewery might have one, but because of how they're made, you kind of have to keep them separate from your other beers, so it adds a lot of overhead into their brewing practices.
So to me, having three different ones means that they actually wanted to do something with this.
Yeah, if you have the space, you can dedicate it to sours, and then that doesn't matter so much. But it's when you introduce sour beers with other beers, there's a chance for contamination from the yeasts that make them sour.
So what exactly is a sour beer for the uninitiated?
It tastes sour because it has yeast in it that has converted some of the sugars in it into acid.
So when you say sour, are we thinking I don't know, like candy sour or pucker sour? Like what kind of sour are we talking here for the usual sour beer?
There's a whole range. You can have super puckery beer. There's a brewery in Indiana that has a line called Wild Sours that do make your cheeks pucker when you sip it.
Okay. So are you excited to try these three cans that are in front of us?
I am 100% excited to try these.
All right. Well, you've got two. I've got one. I'll start here. This one is a strawberry rhubarb a la mode. So this promises a lot. And of course, Ferndale Project does a wonderful job with their labels. It's very colorful and it is considered a limited edition. And it is fruited sour ale with strawberry rhubarb, vanilla wafers, vanilla and milk sugar. So this should be interesting. You know, Randy, this is sweeter than I expected for a sour.
It is sour, and there's none of the bitterness that you would get from things like an IPA at all. But there is a lot of sweetness to this one as well. But it does taste like strawberry rhubarb pie to me with ice cream on top. Tastes like what's on the can.
They nailed it. And that's the most you can really ask is doing what you say you're going to do on the can. So if you are into a strawberry rhubarb a la mode, this one might be the one for you. And, you know, it's funny. I had some soda earlier today, some pop, and I feel like it's not that sweet, but it's definitely sweet.
You hear the term sour beer, but this one isn't like cheek pucker sour. There's just a mild tartness to this.
All right, what's next?
Next, let's stay in the pie category.
Ooh, pie. I like pie.
And this one is apple a la mode.
Before we do that, what is your favorite pie?
Ooh, I am going to have to go weird on this one and say butterscotch meringue.
Whoa. Okay, so not blueberry?
Absolutely not blueberry.
Longtime listeners will know that Randy in a taste test tanked a blueberry flavor of ice cream on his vote alone that would have won the top, but he put thumbs down because he is just not a fan of blueberry. I still get emails to this day from some longtime listeners. I am an apple pie guy, 100%.
So you might like this then. This is apple a la mode. It is a fruited sour ale with Michigan apples, vanilla, cinnamon, clove, cardamom, nutmeg, allspice, vanilla wafers, and milk sugar.
All right, well, crack it up by the microphone. Let's hear it. You went all over. Okay, so the colors because I got clear glasses to be sure of this. The colors are kind of similar. This one's got more like froth to it. Ooh. It's like a champagne and apple pie had a baby.
I would say this is another one where what's on the can is what you taste.
Yeah. Like if you're somebody who maybe doesn't like the taste of beer, no, although even if you like beer, you may like this. I am surprised at how on the nose the flavors are, because I'm used to getting beers from people where it's like, oh, it's this, and you're like, if you close your eyes, you can kind of think of it, and maybe that's a note there. This is the thing, Randy. Is there something about the sour process that allows this to happen?
No, because I've had some sours that don't taste like anything that's promised either.
Okay. And I'm talking about beer in general, right? I mean, we've all done it. Or coffee notes where someone has tasting notes, and it's like, no, those are just, you made those words up. But this is it. If you like this, and I mean, I like apple pie, so.
Those warm baking spices really come through in this. And then you get the hint of vanilla and the slightest hint of a little bit of apple tartness.
It's almost like there's like a cider. It's good. It's apple pie. I'm sitting here gobsmacked because, as I said, I'm not used to beers tasting like the thing.
I don't think this one is quite as sweet as the strawberry rhubarb.
No,
but it still reads a little sweet to me.
It is. It does read sweet, but it is not as sweet. I definitely agree. All right, what do we got next?
Our third and final beer is the Pink Passion, which is a sour ale with pink guava and passion fruit.
I do like a good passion fruit.
You'll notice you've only heard 2 cans cracking because we opened the first one before we started recording.
Let him behind the scenes, Randy. So I had a great passion fruit juice the other week from Baobab Fair. It was pricey, but it was the pure real deal, as passion fruit juice generally is, because there's not a lot of yield there.
Yeah, I had that at a DCFC match.
What'd you think?
It was very sweet and very expensive, but I do like the flavor of passion fruit.
Yeah, I felt great afterward. Very different nose feel. It says Pine Passion. Far funkier.
Yeah, this one tastes more beery.
More beery. Almost like a grapefruit note, like a squirt.
Yeah, and those are the tropical fruits coming through on that.
Yeah, like squirt as sour.
This one is not sweet at all to me.
No, but that's okay. Like that is what it is. What do you think of it overall?
I think this one is an easy summer drinker that I would drink multiples of. The pie flavored ones, I would have a short pour of them, I think.
Is that pink in a limited edition?
Yes, this is a limited edition 22 of 30.
Okay, so these are all limited editions. Get them all you can at the Ferndale Project. The moment of truth is we only have 3 entrants, but let's rank them.
I'm going to go with the Pink Passion as my number 1.
Really?
Followed by the Strawberry Rhubarb, and I think Apple Pie is my number 3.
Ooh. See, to me, it's tough because it depends on my feeling between the apple pie and the Pink Passion, because these are 2 different things.
They're completely different flavors.
So like they're very hard to go head to head on. I'm willing to accept Pink Passion as number 1 if you are willing to accept apple pie as number 2.
Sure, why not?
All right, see, compromise. It can be done everywhere. Welcome to a new age of civility and respect. So I guess that's the final. Pink Passion number 1, apple pie number 2, and then strawberry rhubarb a la mode number 3. But this is, frankly, all relative and honestly a great experience for sour beers. I honestly, Randy, was coming into this ready for some pain. Like I was thinking I was not going to like this. I was coming in with a very different mind, and I had my mind switched around on these.
I would say the 2 pie ones, the apple pie a la mode and the strawberry rhubarb a la mode, don't really even taste like a beer product at all to me.
Wow.
They're just kind of fun flavored drink.
I mean, I like fun flavored drinks. So, Randy, you are the master of knowing all these things. What's the ABV on these?
The strongest one is actually the strawberry rhubarb a la mode.
Surprising.
It is at 6.5%.
All right.
Next strongest is the Pink Passion at 6.1%. And then significantly lower is the apple a la mode, which is 4%.
So like that apple a la mode is actually like less than a hard seltzer.
It is.
Or most of your hard seltzers,
Most
I
of
guess
it,
you should say. Yeah. All right. Well, this is definitely fun, Randy. Go check out Ferndale Project, right?
Absolutely. And try a sour beer.
Now that we've expanded your knowledge when it comes to sour beer, I want to expand some people's knowledge on places to party. This one on the east side. Now, I hinted about this in a previous episode that Apartment Disco was opening up above Lost River on Mack Avenue, right there in the city of Detroit on the border of Grosse Pointes Park. I teased that Randy was going to talk more about it, and Randy is here, so I am dying after seeing all the photos you sent me. Like, what is the vibe on this place? I could tell there's a staircase you go up. There's a skylight. Like, there's so much going on.
Yeah, Apartment Disco is the hot new bar above Lost River Tiki. It is by the same owners and the same team, and it is a retro dance vibe. They've got the black and white checkered tile floor. They've got disco balls. It's fun. And then the music they play actually has the music videos airing on old school tube TVs that are stacked up throughout the space.
Oh, that's super cool. So back in high school, I actually used to program like the local television station, and I loved programming on the old 3/4 U-matic tapes, the old music videos from the 90s. And of course, tube TVs were still very much a thing back then.
I grew up with tube TVs.
Yeah, I'm loving this idea. I'm one of those people who's like, I wish MTV was still music videos. I know that's like textbook geriatric millennial, as you say, geriatric millennial stuff, but I do miss those days. And there's something about that whole vibe. So music-wise, I'm assuming disco.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. When I got there, I heard Rasputin by Boney M a few times. So,
okay,
like that kind of vibe.
Okay. Now, when you say that, I think that there is dancing. Is this place big enough to have some dancing?
There's a little bit of space in the front where you could theoretically dance. Total capacity for the bar, the whole space is around 50 people, I think.
Well, and last I looked, I don't know if it's still the case, but dancing happens on the Detroit side of the Grosse Pointes border because dance floors are illegal in Grosse Pointes Park. Did you know that?
I had no idea.
It's verboten. That's one of the reasons why the old post bar that our mutual friend Bob used to be a bouncer at just down the street from there. He's the one who told me that they got a lot of business because you couldn't have a dance floor in Grosse Pointes squares.
That's so bizarre.
There's more to this place too, though.
Yeah, the other part of their concept is the drinks. And the whole wall behind the bar is lined with bottles of Italian Amari.
Okay.
And Amaro is a bitter herbal liqueur. Usually in Italy, you just sip it neat after dinner as a digestif.
Okay.
But at Apartment Disco, they use these to make cocktails.
And what should we try when we go?
I had a couple of drinks. The first one I had was the Venice 1984, made with gin and apricot liqueur and Amaro di Angostura. And the other one I had that I really liked was the Carmino Sour, which is made with Pisco, which is a South American brandy. And then it's made with Campari, which is probably one of the more common Amari available. You can't go wrong with any of these drinks. They all sound fabulous.
I want to encourage people to open their mind to occasionally putting gin into their mixed drink. Now, I understand a lot of people may not want to do the more straight versions or gin and tonic. I hold this personal opinion that, and maybe it's unpopular, that gin is actually a better palate to paint on for flavors with Amari and other things than vodka. Because I feel like vodka is too neutral for me.
Vodka doesn't really add anything except for upping the booze factor, upping the alcoholic content of it. Gin is an herbal spirit, so it already has some of the herbs that you would also find in the Amari, so they pair well together.
Yeah, and gin and vodka are different in another way in that most vodkas, they don't really stand out for themselves and are very kind of interchangeable after a certain level, in my mind, whereas what gin you select really matters.
Yeah, vodka shouldn't really taste like anything, but there are so many different flavors of prominence in the different gins.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons why you see so many vodkas is it's among the easiest to produce.
Yeah, it's a simple distilled spirit. With gin, you also have to add the botanicals, infuse it with those flavors.
Yeah. And I think in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, I think it's really worth it to go try it, like something based with gin. You don't have to do the gin and tonic, although I do enjoy me a good gin and tonic, especially as you turn me on, like having a good tonic matters too.
Yeah, quality ingredients really make a quality drink.
Now, there's another addition to this place that you sent me a picture of that isn't open yet, but I think you have to share it because, Randy, you are the man with all the tea.
There is a rooftop patio that is projected to open sometime in the spring or early summer.
Ooh, okay, so rooftop patio. Does it overlook Mac?
The whole roof is wide open, and
Whoa.
it overlooks Mac.
Whoa. And can you like see into the skylight and things like that?
Yeah, there's the skylight in Apartment Disco that has the giant disco ball, and you can look down the skylight and see the bar and the giant disco ball. It's a cool looking space. I saw it after the sun went down, so it was dark.
When it's still coming together,
And
right?
it's still being built, so that's why it's not open completely yet, but they gave me a sneak peek.
Now, how did you do? Because I know when we went to the Fisher building for a meeting, I remember walking on the third floor promenade, and you were not a fan.
As long as I don't get close to the railing, I'm fine up there.
Okay.
It's when I get too close to seeing over the edges of things, that's when my fear of heights really kicks in.
It's the one way that Randy stays on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the update. And open on weekends, open during what's the story?
They are open evenings on Fridays and Saturdays. And if you can't get in there, check out downstairs at Lost River.
Now, before we let people go with this kind of fun food and drink, go outy kind of episode of your Daily Detroit, I want to talk about something that I think people need to take care of at their house, Randy. Something that if you're into cocktails, I think boozy or even honestly non-alcoholic, but we're gonna focus on the boozy side for now. Things that you need for a proper home bar. I see lots of people collect booze from friends. They get booze from parties. People bring them bottles. There's kind of a smorgasbord, an assortment of different things. But if you want to throw a party or if you want to have the ingredients around to make most cocktails, I want to talk about what are the things you need. I want to talk about the boozes, the ingredients, and maybe even some of the tools. So let's get into the basics, and we're not going to try to burn all your money here, right? Like, we're going to do this practically.
Yeah, so let's start with equipment. You can get all the equipment you need for anywhere between $20 and $80, depending on the quality and the brand you buy. But you're going to need a few basics to make cocktails. The first thing you're going to need to do is have something to measure. You're going to be measuring in ounces, half ounce, quarter ounce, to all the way up to 2 ounces. So you're probably going to want a jigger. A jigger is the most common bar tool for measuring, or you could get a graduated measuring cup, but you'll need some way to measure your booze and your mixers.
Now, with most jiggers, there's two sides to it, one bigger, one smaller. What does that mean?
You can quickly fill up to the top if you know which side you need or which side you're on of your jigger. Just flip it over.
Is there a standard for how much that is?
I use a graduated measuring cup myself, but jiggers are usually 3/4 of an ounce and 1.5 ounces on opposite sides, or sometimes 1 ounce, 2 ounce. But they will have markers inside for partial measurements as well. So they'll be marked inside for half ounce, quarter ounce, that kind of thing as well.
Do you feel like the measuring cup gives you more control? Because I know when I've had cocktails that you've made, like when we threw a studio party last year, a couple other times, you're very exact, almost like a baker with your ingredients to make sure that you're consistent.
Yeah, consistency is a key so that the drinks taste the same each time. So the reason I use the graduated measuring cup is I just think it's easier to pour out of. It's got a little pour spout, and you can look down into the top and see the measurements.
Okay. Anything else that you need as far as equipment?
Absolutely. You're going to need some shaker tins so that you can shake your cocktail.
And shaker tin. So that's the thing that's like metal with the strainer on it. That's what that's called, a shaker tin?
I think that the cobbler shakers with this cap and the strainer built into them, they're kind of hard to use. Like the lid gets stuck on, you pour and it comes out not where you're expecting. So I use 2 tins together, which is called a Boston shaker. It's a big metal cup and a little metal cup, and you push them together and then shake between the 2 cups.
So that's where I've gone wrong, because my whole cocktail creating life, I've generally done what the cobbler, as you call it,
yes.
And it's always a mess for me. So I thought it was me.
No, they're not really the greatest tools.
Okay, but they look great on a bar.
They do look nice for sure, yes.
Yeah, but go with the shaker tins. Now, that's something what you can get on Amazon from a local shop. Is that?
Yeah, go to a restaurant supply store, order on Amazon. Doesn't really matter too much at this price point. You're probably looking at around $20 to $30 for the pair of cups.
Now, anything beyond that, you're paying for looks and style, right?
A little bit, yeah. You
Okay.
want some fancy, but you do want some solid. The set I have has like weighted bottoms on them, so it's a more sturdy feeling
Okay.
and less likely to spill when you pour into it when it's sitting on the bar. Now, not every cocktail gets shaken. Some cocktails get stirred, so you're probably going to want a mixing glass that you can make your stirred cocktails in. Or if you don't want to splurge on a mixing glass, because they can be expensive, a lot of them are made from crystal, you can just use a pint glass.
Okay.
Just your standard 16-ounce
So there's
pint
nothing
glass.
special about that glass. I mean, it looks good, but is there anything special about that glass?
It has a pour spout on it. It's a little
Okay.
wider than a pint glass, so it's a little easier to get the ice and the spoon in there, but pint glass works fine. And then you need a bar spoon to stir. Tablespoons, teaspoons are not usually long enough to get down into the bottom of the cup
And
without
it's sticky.
Yeah, and then your hand gets sticky because you're reaching into the spirit. So a long-handled bar spoon is perfect for that.
Those usually have like a twisty on them, right? They're like...
Yeah, they're spiraled so that it helps easier to stir, spin around in your hand.
Oh, really? Okay. So there's actually a purpose for that. It's
Yeah.
not just decoration.
Right. And then since I recommend Boston shakers, you'll need some way to strain your drink, and you should get a Hawthorne strainer. A Hawthorne strainer is the kind of strainer that fits over the top of the mixing tin, and it has this spring coil around there to keep like chunks and ice cubes in the cup while you pour the liquid out.
Okay, yeah, and it helps it stay on there with those spring coils.
Yes.
And it'll do a much better job than the built into the cobbler shaker, let me tell you from personal
Absolutely.
experience.
Cobbler shaker gets clogged up with, mint leaves or...
Yeah, that happened to me once, and it just started going like horizontally around. The entire counter was covered with booze. It was not a good look.
So those 5 tools are the basics that you need to get started. You can upgrade by getting a fine mesh strainer to, keep the ice chips out of your drink. You can get a citrus press, so if you need to squeeze lemons or limes, it's easier to do that. I mean, you can do that in your hands. You can squeeze it between a pair of kitchen tongs, but a citrus press gets the most juice out. And then if you do drinks like mojitos or a mint julep, you probably want a muddler to squish those mint leaves, or you can break up berries, things like that in a drink too.
The muddler's not the Riddler's low rent brother?
He is not.
So we've got the tools. What are the things that we need as the basic set to get started? Or from your friends to bring to the bar?
Sure. I would start with some gin. I would start with some bourbon. Get sweet vermouth. Get dry vermouth. Get some Angostura bitters. And get some light rum. With those 3 spirits, the bitters, and the 2 vermouths, you could make almost a dozen different types of drinks.
Really? Not a whiskey?
The bourbon will cover
most of the whiskey drinks?
Most of the whiskey things to start with. And then you can experiment. Like, if you like rye, you want your drink a little spicier, pick up a bottle of rye to add to your repertoire. But start small, figure out what you like, and then start adding to it.
Would you do a bottle of vodka as well?
You could do vodka. You could make something like a vodka gimlet or a vodka martini with it, sure.
And, some people, it's accessible, right? So some people will just want a vodka cocktail. All right, round 2 is, what do you get next? You got a few different basics. And when you say actually, I'm going to loop back a little bit and say, you don't want to go super cheap on your first round, but you don't want to spend a ton of money.
So for starter brands, I would recommend like Beefeater Gin is great. It's not expensive and it's got some nice flavor. Buffalo Trace is a solid bourbon. For rum, you can do Don Q Cristal or Flor de Caña extra dry. Or if you can't find those, you can do the Bacardi Superior.
Okay.
That's okay. And then just do Dolan Vermouth. I would stay away from the bottom tier vermouths and go up one notch. So maybe $15 to $20 a bottle of vermouth.
Okay.
And then the Angostura bitters, they're kind of expensive, but the little bottle will last you quite a ways because you use 2 to 4 drops per cocktail.
I go through one bottle maybe once a year.
Yeah.
Something like that. And by that time I just replace it. I don't know if I should, but I just replace it just to do it about once a year. I rarely go through it. So when it comes to the second tier, you figured out kind of what you like. What are the second tier of boozes to add to your wish list?
Well, it depends on what you like. If you're a tequila drinker, definitely pick up at least a young Blanco tequila. A Reposado is great for making cocktails as well. I wouldn't do an añejo tequila for cocktails. That's a sipping tequila. Like I said earlier, if you like spicier drinks, add some rye. Rittenhouse is a good rye. Try some funkier rums, like local 2 James rum is called Dr. Bird. That's a nice Jamaican, funky, vegetal rum. And then start throwing in some liqueurs and things like maybe Saint Germain, which is an elderflower liqueur, or Campari, the bitter orange flavored Amaro. You add Campari and suddenly you can make Negronis and you can make Boulevardiers.
I am a big fan of the Boulevardier. Big fan. So we've got hardware. We've got, liquidware?
Sure. Wetware?
Wetware. Yeah, we've got the hardware and the wetware. Now we're going to need some of the foodware, the groceries, because There's more than just what's in the bottle to make some great cocktails.
It's not really a cocktail if it's just gin and ice cubes. So you're going to want to get some lemons and limes. A lot of great cocktails have citrus in them. Soda water, tonic water, mint, and simple syrup. And you can buy a bottle of simple syrup for $5, or you can mix 2 cups of sugar with 2 cups of water, bring it to a boil, and let it cool for 13 cents.
Well, you actually do your own simple syrups, and you also sometimes infuse them.
I do syrups. You can put in a couple of cinnamon sticks to make cinnamon flavored simple syrup. You can put in some rosemary if you want an herbal component. You can double the amount of sugar to make a sweeter syrup. You could use honey instead of sugar to make a honey syrup.
And use real sugar, though. Don't use substitutes.
Yeah, I would use table sugar. Brown sugar syrup would be interesting. You can buy turbinado sugar in the baking aisle, which is like a darker, somewhere between like white refined sugar and brown sugar with some of that molassesy flavor. That would make a richer syrup.
But you don't want to Splenda this.
Oh, no. It won't dissolve. The ratios will be all off. You could do some research and come up with a sugar substitute you could use to flavor your drinks, but it wouldn't. Then you'd have to adjust all your recipes. So if you can, splurge on the real sugar if your diet allows it.
Yeah. And then what is the cherry on top for all this? You've got your groceries. You've got your hardware, your wetware. What's the splurge? What's the +1 if you're going to treat yourself this holiday season for your home bar cabinet?
I would say the splurge would actually be a cocktail book. You should have some sort of source for recipes, so you have a starting point for developing your own home bar recipes. Start with somebody else's recipe. If you like it, cool, add it to your repertoire. If you don't like it, change it up until you do like it, or you determine, nope, that's not the drink for me, and move on to the next drink. A couple of books I would recommend would be Death and Company by Kaplan, the PDT Cocktail Book by Meehan, or The Bar Book by Morgenthaler is a great one too.
This has been invaluable, Randy Walker. I mean, this has been really great. I think I'm motivated to like restock my bar right now, like as soon as we're done recording here.
Sure. And then, once you start experimenting with these recipes from a book, you'll start to notice patterns. A lot of the recipes use same ratios, but different spirits and different mixers. So really start experimenting, learning what the drinks are, how to make them, and then start swapping out ingredients. And then you'll start recognizing the ratios of spirits to sweet to sour to bitter.
The key is experimentation. Have fun with it.
Absolutely. If you don't like it, make another drink.
Randy, it was so good to talk to you for this episode. It's just great to catch up with you and all this knowledge that I feel like gets kept locked behind the soundboard and off in the corner when we do these shows.
Yeah, it's great to share this. I'm really enthusiastic about cocktails. I didn't learn it all right away. I've been experimenting. There's still lots of things I am learning about cocktails, but we all have to start somewhere, and I'm happy to help you get started.
A little housekeeping before I go. The holiday season is upon us, and so that means our schedule will be a bit different. We heard the feedback, and we aren't taking it all off like we did last year, but we are going to slow down a bit. So we're going to do 3 or 4 episodes this week, a couple, 2 or 3 next week, then back to our regular schedule in the new year. Along the way, we'll be sending updates in our newsletter, dailydetroit.substack.com, with all the things happening on social media. If you sign up for the newsletter, you won't miss a thing. As always, if you've got feedback or guest suggestions, dailydetroit@gmail.com. I'm Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and I'll see you around Detroit.